All right, so we started last week with this list of scriptures that telling us and reminding us that we can be free in this moment if we want to be, and to keep it that simple. Don't. I'm always very uncomfortable with this idea of creating a third person, a third party person out there, who, when I die, sits there and looks at a list and says, "Oh, yeah," gives me a kick and suddenly I'm in a pig's body, for my next incarnation. It's like it seems to me very clear that when you die, you come back as you want to come back. It's not assigned to you. It's none of this is assigned to you. You have the life at this moment. This moment as you experience it is the sum total of your desires. All of the desires that you've gone after have given you this moment as you experience it. And if you can be free of that, if you can let go of that, then this moment becomes what it is. It becomes clear and free and ever pure to you. It becomes immensely beautiful. And so it's always good in meditation that we don't see ourselves as enslaved to a third party. We're enslaved to a body and to a mind, and that it's completely within our power to walk away from that. We don't have to balance our karma, because our karma is not, in essence, our karma. The karma belongs to the mind. The karma does not belong to the soul, to the self. The self is free from all of that. And so it's that understanding. When you're ready to walk away, you can walk away. You can be free this moment. There is nothing dictating your being here except for you and your love of being here, whatever that means to you. And so when Vivekananda says, go down, build your character is just a string of habits. It's not mystical either. You build good character by building good habits. You get rid of bad character by stopping bad habits. And so do that. Follow the ideas of living in the presence of God, in the presence of this perfection and this beauty, and return to that one, that final prayer of Jesus. And then the master's promise that regardless of your life, you can be a prostitute downtown. He says, if a pea falls into filth, it grows into a pea plant nonetheless. So that infinite potential belongs to you regardless of where you think you are at this moment. That your destiny is set. Forget karma. Everybody's destiny is freedom. Why get lost in karma? Your destiny is freedom. Your destiny is bliss. Your destiny is to know the truth of your essence and to be overwhelmed and thrilled in that wonder. And he says, the magician's feet. We ended last week with that idea, the magician with his knots tied on the rope, and he just gives it a shake, and all the knots are gone. Thakur says that's what it is. That's how easy all of your karma is taken care of. You walk away from it. It was unreal. There is no substance there. There is no thing there. It's your own refusal to let go of the rope. Vivekananda's wonderful poem, Sannyasin Bold. It is your hand that holds the rope that binds you down. Let go your hold, Sannyasin Bold. Say Om Tat Sat Om. And it's that letting go that, of course, is our struggle, because we've become so disunified within that when we say something up here, it doesn't resonate down here, because we've broken ourselves into, even ourself is broken into different people at different times. And so we don't even have the integrity of being able to say, I'm free, and being free. If we had the integrity to where we believed our own words, but we've softened our characters to the extent that we don't even believe our own words. Ramakrishna I was reading today, where he was talking about talking about me actually, but anyway, he was talking about this guy that could sit there and listen to these holy words and then walk out of the room and just fall right back into the man he was before. And Thakur says, it's because he has no stuff inside. And I'm like, well, what's that stuff? That's the where do I get that stuff? To become that. But that's the problem is we've have been so disingenuous, even with our own self, even within our own mind and world, that when we say something, we don't believe it, and because that's the one thing that Thakur said was wrong with that man. It's like he won't even make a vow to stop doing what he's doing. Why won't he make a vow? Because he can't believe his own vow, because he doesn't hold that integrity within. So what are we going to do with this? We're going to continue here. It says the heading, of course, says, do not be afraid to dive into the moment because God is there. God is here, which is, oh my God, it's one of my favorite understandings, is to know that this moment, the existence, the being, the everything, this moment is God. We don't have to wait. We're not going to see anything different at some point. It's this moment, this eternal moment. This is where we will die, and this is where we'll rise again, and this is where we'll have our realization, and this is where, all of these changes will take place. They're always born of this moment, in this moment. And so don't wait to see God. That's why Vivekananda tells us that. Stop seeking, start seeing. Remind yourself and get lost in that. So don't be afraid to dive into the moment. Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj, he says, time is endless, though limited. Eternity is in the split moment of the now. We miss it because the mind is ever shuttling between the past and the future. It will not stop to focus on the now. It can be done with comparative ease if interest is aroused. Again, it's throwing it right back in our court. If you're interested in being present, in being in the presence of God, if you're interested enough in that you can forget about the story of the past that's projecting this moment, and you forget about your desires, which are projecting your future, if you can truly set them down, set those suitcases down, you can be with the divine in full radiant ecstasy at this moment. It's up to us. We just have to do it. And our meditation is to sit there and say, wow, my realization is available to me right now. It's the only effect with no cause, they say. So what is it that I think I'm going to do in order to realize God? If it's the only effect with no cause, if it comes by grace alone, which is reiterated even in the Advaitic scriptures, even in the path of knowledge, the grace of God is present, it says. Even Nisargadatta will bring God into the picture. Buddhism has a whole chapter in that book we're studying on the divine, on God. Despite this reputation that, Buddhism has no God, God is present in all of the paths and fundamental to all of the paths. And so he's here, she's here, that is here and now and available if you're interested, if you want it. He goes on, a questioner says to him, well, what about cause and effect? We think we are always lost in the past and the future because we have this idea of cause and effect. It's like, that's why we believe that we're going to do something at some point in order to have our realization, that there's going to be some change in us or something that we finally do where, boom, oh, now I've realized God. Wow, that was lots of work, really hard. I'm glad it happened. But that's utterly not the case. So what's he going to say? What about cause and effect? And Maharaj says, each moment contains the whole of the past and creates the whole of the future. So you see, this moment has everything in it. There is no such, the past and future are purely conceptual, as we know. We have only ever experienced the now. And even when we talk about the past, where do you talk about it? In the present. So it's not the past that you're talking about. You're coloring the present with something, with an attachment. right? I've probably said that a million times in front of everybody. This idea, what is your past, your attachments? What is your future, your desires? And what is the moment? The moment is what you misunderstand when you look at it through your attachments and create the desires, which makes you depend on the future for a plan to acquire them. So that's why we're constantly going back and forth between the two. We can't just be here because we think it's all so meaningful, because the ego loves that sense of meaning. It loves that sense of control. It's like, my past, this is who I am. Your entire identity is brought from the past. Well, we can know the past is not real. The past is gone and never coming back. If you've got your identity based on it, good luck with that. It can't do much. And so the questioner says, but past and future exist. And Maharaj says, in the mind only. Time is in the mind. Space is in the mind. The law of cause and effect is also a way of thinking. In reality, all is here and now, and all is one. Multiplicity and diversity are in the mind only. So they're part of the tool. We see the past because the mind grabs it, wants to hold on to it, wants to make it immortal, wants to make the changing immortal. So to grab a memory and try and keep it with it. And the future, again, it projects its ideas into the future, its sense of purpose, its sense of being, its sense of identity. But these are only in the mind. The questioner, well, still you're in favor of relieving suffering, even through destruction of the incurably diseased body. Maharaj, again, you're looking from outside. I look from within. I do not see a sufferer. I am the sufferer. I know him from within and do what is right spontaneously and effortlessly. I follow no rules, nor lay down rules. I flow with life, faithfully and irresistibly. Isn't that beautiful? That the mind, without the distortions of past and future, and without the distortions of me and mine, and without the distortions of cause and effect, responds perfectly. It needs no rules. You are the rules. The rules that the whole of the scriptures was pulled from the moment we're sitting in. It was a distillation, a crystallization of the truth of isness into words. That's the scripture. You don't need the books. You don't need the writings. This very experience of being, this very essence of isness contains them all, and they're yours. They're for you. You wrote them to begin with in one of your other forms, in one of your other imagined times. You wrote them. And why did you write them? To set yourself free. Bindu wrote the Gita. Why did the Gita come into this life for Bindu? Because she put it there. And why did she put it there? To be free, to remember, to get out of the game that she wrote and jumped into. And here she is. I imagine, actually, I'm just seeing something on a computer. I trust you're out there.
Yeah, we're here.
Yes. Yeah. So again, you see from the outside, and this is that change of perspective. When you think about yourself, you think about yourself from the outside in, do you not?
Mm-hmm.
When you think of yourself, you actually have to get out of your own body and remember the reflection in the mirror. It's like, that's who you are. That's what I am. Well, that's never been the same 2 days in a row. How can that be who you are? But the reason that we do it, why? Why do we do that? Because how would you know who you are from the inside out? What are you going to tell me about what's inside? What can be said about what's inside? We could describe a mind, but that's not the inside. What is it when you're sitting there in silence without thought? What can be said about you? Nothing can be said. because you're infinite potential in that space. You are whatever you unfold in that space. So to describe ourselves, we have to go from the outside in. And to go from the outside in, we have to have an ego that's able to separate itself from that silent internal experience, from that attributeless space that we actually inhabit. You know, he says, once you are inwardly integrated, outer knowledge comes to you spontaneously. At every moment of your life, you know what you need to know. In the ocean of the universal mind, all knowledge is contained. It is yours on demand. Most of it you may never need to know, but it is yours all the same. What is that? What an incredible understanding. What an incredible statement to make. But if you read, these great scientists, when they have their aha moments, it's just suddenly there for them. Vivekananda says that education is not the adding of facts to a mind. He said, education is the removal of ignorance so that knowledge can manifest, can appear for you. And so that's all of the great discoveries of the world, he says in one of his lectures, comes through meditation. Because what's an academician? There it is. See, I got it. An academician doing when he's studying? He's meditating. He's coming to a point of focus, a point of concentration. And in that, all of these truths become revealed. They're all discovered. They're not created. They're discovered because they lie within you, dormant, most of them unnecessary, but all of them belong to you nonetheless. What can you say to that? What an amazing thing that is to understand and to come to a reality, to the reality, where that's the case. What does someone like Sri Nisargadatta, can you imagine sitting in that state in life and just seeing it all happen, full of knowledge, full of no mistakes, no fear. You can't be touched, you can't be wetted, you can't be burned. That this body will come and it will go, and you know that it's done that millions and millions of times, perhaps. Perhaps you're even farther, the mind is even larger than that, that pure mind. Perhaps he sees the entirety of the entirety, free of time. But he says it's all yours on demand. As with knowledge, so it is with power. Holy cow. There it is again. Whatever you feel needs to be done happens unfailingly. We see that in Ramakrishna when he wanted to build that fence around the Panchavati, remember? And suddenly all the materials wash up on the beach, the nails, the tools, the wood. Why? Because he was miraculous? No, because he was one with the mind of God. God does not desire. Whatever occurs to God is. There's no passage of time. There's no planning. There's just isness. And so when you come to know that that is your mind, that the mind of God and your mind are one and the same, when you through surrender have let go of the what is it? The what do you call that? When something's not superstitious mind. When you're willing to surrender your superstitious mind, the mind that's controlled by an ego in this vast universe, when you've got the good sense to let go of that and realize that your mind and the mind of God are one and the same, then there's no thought, no planning. What arises is, and that's can be anything, anywhere. As with knowledge, so it is with power. Whatever you feel needs to be done happens unfailingly, no doubt. God attends to this business of managing the universe, but he is glad to have some help. When the helper is selfless and intelligent, all the powers of the universe are for him to command. And we see this even in the Christian scriptures. It's one of those things that I never knew what to do with as a boy. When Jesus made that statement, when he talks to Peter and he says, you can say to this mountain, get up and throw yourself in the sea. And if you had the faith of the size of a mustard seed, I verily tell you the truth, this mountain will throw itself into the sea. And you think how extraordinary that is. What is it that prevents that from happening? I have told many mountains since then to throw themselves in the sea, and still none have obliged my desire. And so I keep wondering, why not? And then I had a dream one time, and in this dream I became aware of dreaming. It's happened 3 times in my life. This one was the second time. Actually, this one was the first time. The second one was the yellow inner tube. The first time I was in this basement and I became aware of dreaming. And I became aware that it was my dream. And I tried to take control. I thought to myself, if this is my dream, I can do anything I want. And so I tried to do something outside the narrative of the dream. And I was thrown out of the dream instantly. I woke up, woke up on the spot. And I thought, how odd is that? Who threw me out of my own dream? Because I wanted to exercise some ego within the realm of my dream. What an odd thing. What a strange thing. That it's my dream and I even then am not in charge of my own dream. The second time when I was in the yellow inner tube I've told that story ad infinitum, but when I was sitting in that yellow inner tube, all I could do was appreciate everything that was as being dream and not feel afraid and actually have a very interesting perspective on things. But I was still bound by sitting in an inner tube on the bay in Monterey. It's like I still, even within my own dream, was not able to know this truth. Even knowing the truth, I couldn't exercise the truth. It was a fascinating experience. So he says, the moment is the only tool for the aspirant. So this moment, which has all of the power that we would need, it has all of the knowledge that we would ever need. This is our only tool. This moment is the only thing you have to realize God. And what will you use it for? Maharaj says, do your work. When you have a moment free, look within. What is important is not to miss the opportunity when it presents itself. If you are earnest, you will use your leisure fully. That is enough.
I would follow this.
Yeah, don't feel alone in that. I mean, the amount of pricks that Mother gives me in just a single one of these classes is unbelievable. Because it's true,
Yeah.
If I had used even 10% of my leisure to do anything, I would have accomplished how much, it is an amazing thing, but that doesn't matter because that's story, right? That's me looking at myself in a particular way and defining it, because I'll have leisure this evening. I don't have to waste it like I always have. I don't even have to claim that I always have, because that doesn't exist. It's not real. What's real is here and now, and I can use this moment from this time. We don't even talk in terms of this time forward. At this moment, I'm being earnest. We're studying scripture. We're looking at these things. So when the Zoom is over, we can be earnest at that point and ponder them then, and think about them then, and go inwardly then. So this is how we use the moment. Don't waste it. Become conscious of it as your only tool for this realization. And he says, how does personality come into being? By memory. This is your story, right, that we talk about. Your personality comes into being because of your past, your imagined past. By memory, by identifying the present with the past and projecting it into the future. Think of yourself as momentary, without a past, without a future, and your personality dissolves. That's what surrender is. Sit in this moment and be willing to let go of your story completely. Everything that defines what you think about yourself, let it go. That is why we're not realized. We are not willing to let go of our own story. We're not willing to lay it down and cease to be this marvelous personality that we've put together.
Yes, second that. At least for me, I can't say for you.
Yeah, no, it's for all of us. That's the one sign of grace is that thou art that, right? And nobody loves you more than you. Like, I can explain away all of my faults. It's like,
I can't explain anything at this point in time.
well, that's closer to truth than me. That's wonderful. Yeah. No, be free in this moment. Don't be defined. If it occurs to you to do it, do it. If it occurs to you to do it, do it. In pure mind, you have to do some house cleaning for that to be a safe statement. But even then, even if it's not a clean house and it occurs to you, do it, but do it with your eyes open. Do it with the present,
Yes.
do it and learn from it. And if it's not according to your nature, you'll never need to do it again because you'll learn the lesson if you're conscious and awake while you do it. If you do it and you push that part of you that's learning out of the way because you want to indulge and you don't want to learn the lesson, well then that's where we're at, frankly, isn't it? Because we keep overeating, we keep oversleeping, all of these things, because we would rather be involved in that than in truth, than in learning, than in being able to accept that none of this has any meaning, that there is nothing special about you being you. As long as you're not really being you. All right. So he says, until I met my guru, I knew so many things. Now I know nothing. For all knowledge is in dream only and not valid. I know myself and I find no life nor death in me, only pure being, not being this or that, just being. But the moment the mind, drawing on its stock of memories, begins to imagine, it fills the space with objects and time and events. Just these are marvelous things. Any one of them, you could just sit there and what a beautiful, beautiful afternoon it would be to sit in the sun and just think about this and know it to be true. That's the power of it. See if you can think about it enough for it actually to get a drop of that water, that nourishing water, down to the part of you that's sincere, the part of you that's earnest, the part of you that's unchanging.
Yeah.
He says the essence of saintliness is total acceptance of the present moment. There it is. The essence of saintliness is just the perfect acceptance of the moment as it is. God is everywhere present and always perfect. Accept that, and you're a saint. That's the only thing. Be able to take this moment as it is and not feel any inkling to need to change it. He says the only difference between a saint and a sinner is that the sinner is always trying to perfect the moment. The saint is already enjoying the perfection of the moment. No need to change it. Because you have to know who you are, right? Because the moment is not always going to be perfect for a body. It's 1 degree outside right now. That's not a perfect moment for a body, and the moment's not going to be perfect for a mind. But you're neither body nor mind. So learning how to accept the moment is the same thing as surrendering body and mind. It's the same thing as as losing the ego. This is what must be done in any of the myriad of ways that the scriptures teach. So the essence of saintliness is total acceptance of the present moment, harmony with things as they happen. A saint does not want things to be different from what they are. He knows that, considering all factors, they are unavoidable. He is friendly with the inevitable and therefore does not suffer. Pain he may know, but it does not shatter him. Right? So it's not that things will be all kudos as far as body and mind go. You may be in pain, you may have cancer, you may be dying, you may have a broken leg, but it's the body that has a broken leg. So let that be. How many broken legs are in the world right now, and you're not concerned at all about them? So why be
But how do
concerned?
you deal, sorry, Sam, how do you deal with the pain of others at this point in time? I mean, one can understand one's own pain. How do you deal with the pain of, and I think we were kind of alluding to this earlier, but other than saying, oh, it's God's will, or this is God's, this is how it is, this is my karma, this is how it is. It almost seems like a cop out at times.
Yeah, well, I think that part of the answer to that is Sri Nisargadatta saying, I don't see the sufferer, I suffer. It's a very high idea, it's a very high philosophy, very high state of being, actually. But that's the real answer.
What was it again? I don't see this.
I don't see the sufferer, I suffer.
I suffer, okay.
Because he is identified with the I that is that person and the I that is you, knowing they are the same. So he sees the suffering, and then he doesn't have to calculate about what to do. There's no calculation. If you're suffering, what do? It's your nature to alleviate suffering. How will you alleviate suffering? Every situation is different. But more times than not, it's like when you look at Thakur, when one of his devotees' young sons died, and he was sitting there and he was, in mourning in the presence of Thakur, and there was a room full of devotees, and he was weeping and he was crying and he was, suffering horribly. And Thakur sat there and did nothing, just sat there. And the devotees started murmuring, what is this? Does he not care at all about this guy? And then all of a sudden, Thakur stands up and strikes his chest and says, stand up, be a man. Death is at your door. What will you do? And he sings that song, and just attacks the moment spontaneously. Most of us cannot know what to do in the moment because we're sitting there panicking about trying to figure out what to do in the moment. You know what to do. Let go of the story that's trying to make you say something different from what your nature is. I think one of the greatest things you can do when someone's suffering is to sit there and suffer with them. Just silent. You can't take away their grief. You can't take away their story, but you can become a part of it. You can hold their hand quietly. You can put your arm around them quietly. You can do whatever occurs to you in that moment when you're chanting the name of God inside. Do whatever occurs to you, at that moment. You can't tell people things that you don't believe. So while we may philosophically know that all things are coming to an end and that God is everywhere present, and we know all of these things,
you can't,
but you don't have the right to say those things until you know them, in the sense of grok, in the sense of that deepest knowledge of like knowing. So what do you do before then or after then? You just set aside your own self and just be quiet. Better to be quiet than to make up a story or to assume a story or a sequence of events. Just be quiet, chant the name of God, and do what occurs to you.